Michael Beckwith. Thank you so much for being here.
My joy.
Michael, from your perception, what is the single greatest lie humanity tells about itself that creates the most suffering in the world?
Humanity sometimes lives in a simulation of being distant from the presence that's never an absence. They think they're separate from it, so they're always trying to reach for it or get it or go find it or die and go to heaven or something to that effect. But it's a lie that the presence, we're an emanation of the presence. There's no separation at all. We have to begin to think from that dynamic rather than striving to get there.
What's the origination of that lie?
There's probably two, but one is a kind of a nefarious hypnotism to keep people under control by forces that would want to dominate humanity, so that if individuals knew how powerful they were and how powerful they are, they would not be controlled. They would not be seduced into belittling themselves. And it's probably some type of forgetfulness, some kind of spiritual amnesia that may happen too when an individual takes an incarnation. So I think that those two things working together provide the continuation of the lie.
What do you feel humanity's greatest fear is?
Humanity's greatest fear. I think individuals are actually afraid of their light. They're afraid of their brilliance. They're afraid of living. And so they have a fallback to hanging in the survival body, the survival mind, constantly knowing themselves as those that can traverse adversity, things of that particular nature, but have not become comfortable knowing themselves in a field of brilliance and abundance and light as their identity. So humanity sees themselves as, many individuals see themselves as, I can make it through anything, but can you live in the calm without creating chaos? Can you live in joy without creating an excuse to be happy? Can you live at that level? And individuals, I think, are subtly afraid of that.
It seems very paradoxical, and I believe that to be true. It's like the Plato's cave allegory. Are you familiar with that? You'd have to.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Why do you think it is that people are afraid of their own brilliance?
I think that once you understand, have a degree of knowledge as to who you are, you cannot live in excuse-making about anything or be victimized. Oftentimes people have used their mastery to master excuses, and they've created innovative ways of excuse-making as to why they're not happy, why they don't have more joy in their life. But once you understand that you're connected and that there's nothing outside of you that you need, you have to just remember you. Excuse-making goes by the wayside. I think people have become kind of an indentured servant to their excuses and victim stories. And that needs to dissolve.
Yeah, I feel like humans or humanity in some ways could be plagued with like a certain level of perfectionism, where if you were to really fully show yourself entirely and expose your heart entirely and expose your brilliance and expose your light, if that aspect of you was not loved, it was not received, I think it would confirm at some core fundamental level that you are not lovable. And we're terrified of that. And so we wear a mask, which makes it impossible for us to be loved. And we sit in this kind of middle stasis space, like purgatory.
Right.
And hopefully something rattles us up enough to be courageous enough to open our hearts.
Absolutely. I mean, the word personality is persona. It is literally a mask that we wear. And individuals they're afraid to take that mask off. Well, that not only are they afraid to take it off, they've actually think that's who they are. They've hypnotized themselves into thinking that perception is their identity. Until, as you just said, something happens either through pain or through insight they begin to break through that mask and begin to see themselves differently.
What is your relationships with the masks that you have worn or wear in your own life?
For me, prior to an awakening I had many years ago, there was the mask of fitting in. There was the mask of tremendous courage and bravado. There's a number of them, and conscious and unconscious, I assume. And then a number of years ago, I was killed in a lucid dream, and the pain was excruciating. When I woke up, I could see differently, and it took a number of years to integrate with what I saw myself as in that particular moment. As a matter of fact, I remember when I was going through university and we had to take these psychological exams. This is after that particular experience. The instructor came up and looked at all my charts and he says, "You have the same face for everything." He said, "Many people have different faces for different events and conditions." He said, "Your psychological exam, you have the same face all the time, except when you're under stress, you become more inspirational." I thought that was fascinating. But most people we're a constellation of shifting identities, different identities for different circumstances. And some of that is wonderful. You're going to be different to your daughter, if you're a dad, you're going to be different at work. But some of the shifting personalities are conditioned based. And I think as we become more aware of who we are, we don't shift as much. We're just pretty much the same. And I don't mean in a boring way, but we're not shifting based on a circumstance or condition.
What is the playbook for a person interested in quote unquote waking up?
First, you have to know you're asleep. There's the endarkenment, the consciousness where you have to know you're sleeping. So then when you know you're sleepwalking, then there's an intention. You have to establish an intention in your life that you want to wake up. You know that you're living, in a kind of a simulation. You're living under the aegis of thoughts and perceptions, beliefs, points of view that have created a kind of fog of belief. Once you know that and you intend to break out of that, then of course, as you know, there are different spiritual practices that one can enter into, meditation being one, to begin to release a signal kind of that you're ready to wake up. It's like when you go to sleep at night and say you have an appointment in the morning, 7 o'clock, you don't want to set your alarm. You know that when you're sleeping, there's a certain something that happens that you kind of wake up in your sleep and you get up. Well, I think that spiritual practices are like that. You're sleeping, so you anchor yourself into a spiritual practice, and then that releases a signal. You begin to wake up. You begin to see differently. You begin to feel yourself differently. The sense of separation from the beauty and the love and the intelligence begins to diminish and become smaller and smaller, and you actually feel that you're actually an ambassador, you're an emissary, you're an emanation of this life, But intention combined with spiritual practice is the beginning playbook.
How would a person know right now if they're asleep or awake?
I think that when you look at the average person, there's a fear phobia that many people live under. They're afraid of being afraid. And so they have compulsive behaviors that they do to keep themselves from feeling that inner fear. And their life is busy. Their life is full to not feeling whatever it is that they're feeling. They don't want to feel it. They don't want to feel depressed. They don't want to feel sad. They don't want to feel angry. They don't want to feel scared. And so they do a lot of things to keep that at bay. But your awakening comes when you embrace all of that. You don't try to run away from it. You stand in the middle of it, you embrace it. And then something begins to happen where you have an inner realization, wow, that you're actually bigger vibrationally than what you are afraid of. But if people are, I think oftentimes, particularly in the Western worlds, people will take some type of exogenous drug, pharmaceuticals, to keep them from feeling their angst. But in the middle of that angst and anxiety, I think, is a breakthrough. If you sit with it and embrace it and not push it away and pretend it's not there and over spiritualize it. But if you're doing that, you're kind of running away from your awakening. You see, you're not going through what you have to go through to realize who you are. That's making sense. Yeah.
It's like the idea of being afraid of the storm and then the realization that you are the storm.
Absolutely. It's all in here. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you afraid of anything?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. That question came up, and the question was it about fear? I was trying to figure out if there was something that I was overly concerned about, and I couldn't vibrate. I mean, I have concerns, obviously, but I'm not really vibing with fear right now. I'm not highfalutin. I'm not putting myself on a mountaintop or anything. I don't, I think the closest I get to that these days is, I want my children and my grandchildren to have a level of safety in their life with all this stuff going on in the world. So I don't have a particular fear for myself, but I have a concern about those around me. I want them to be okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What about attachments? What's your relationship to attachments in your own life?
Probably the closest thing I have an attachment to, I have a vision of an unfoldment of things that I want to accomplish. I'm not attachment. I don't have attachment to people or any particular thing. I'm kind of in the moment. It's like, for instance, I'm pretty much plant-based, but I don't have any judgment about it. If I want to go someday and eat some salmon, I'll do it. You know what I mean? I don't have an attachment. I'm a vegan, or something like that. I'm kind of easy. But don't mess with my family.
Would you be comfortable with dying? Would there create any attachment or fear? Would any of that get evoked within you if you realize that this form was going to go away?
I'll tell you a true story on that. A number of years ago, I was in Costa Rica and I got caught in a riptide. It was way out. Mm-hmm. My daughter was on the beach. We were the only people on the beach. And I went under. I was swallowing a lot of water. And it was so peaceful. I remember thinking, wow, I can't get in. This might be my last day on the planet. And as I was underwater, it was just total peace. I said, oh, okay. And then a thought went across my mind. It said, if you don't get back, there's going to be a lot of upset people. I heard it. And I popped up and I said, I need a little help here. Now, when I said that, it wasn't like a conscious thought. It just came out of my mouth. I need a little help here, like that. And then 3 waves came, big waves, and gave me momentum. It still was hard to get in, but it gave me enough momentum to finally get in. But I always remember that moment when I thought that was my last day, and it was just kind of a inner soulful smile, like, okay, if this. I remember scanning my mind. Did I have any lucid dreams, or any dreams, or any intuition? This was my last day. And I said, no, I think I would pick this up if this was going to happen. So I popped up. I went, and I made it in, obviously. I'm here. And I was breathing deeply. And so I come back home, and I have a friend of mine named Alicia. And what she does for a living, she's a medium. She talks to dead people and all that kind of stuff. So I said, Alicia, I had this experience when I was in Costa Rica, and I almost drowned, and I felt very peaceful. I asked for help. And Alicia said, well, can I go in and look at your experience? I said, sure, go right ahead. So she closed her eyes. She looked. She says, "Oh, you asked for help." I said, "Yeah." She said, "An archangel gave you 3 ways to get you back in. They cannot intervene unless you ask for help. And when you ask for help, you got the waves you needed." But back to your question, when I thought I was dying, there wasn't fear. There was just like, "Oh, this is it?" I thought I had more time.
I'd like to take a moment and share a word from our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you and us by these delicious, delectable longevity gummies referred to as MitoPure from Timeline. If you're experiencing things like brain fog, lower energy, trouble with recovery after working out, it could be supportive to you to support yourself at a cellular level. That is exactly what this compound referred to as urolithin A. This is the #1 doctor-recommended urolithin A supplement on the market, and it promotes cellular energy, muscle strength, and longevity. What it does is it supports your mitochondria go through a process called mitophagy. So it's the breakdown of the old, gunky, crappy, crummy mitochondria to replenish with the new ones. Mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of your cells, and this stuff, the urolithin A, in these MitoPure gummies is helpful to replenish those mitochondria. If you want to try it for yourself, you can go to timeline.com/align and you'll get 20% off. And also Timeline's clinically proven formula is now available at a new lower price. MitoPure now starts at $99 with the exact same science and formula. And my listeners get 20% off by going to timeline.com/align. I hope you guys enjoy. If a person wants to learn to pray, how do they begin the process of learning how to pray?
Well, the prayer is a feeling of that leads to a connection, a realization that what you're praying for, you already have it. So I always teach people that when you go into prayer, you start with gratitude. You don't start with what you want. You start with gratitude. You give thanks for your life. You go into a deep feeling of gratitude and thanksgiving and appreciation. And then you begin to recognize that this presence is everywhere. It's omnipresent. And then you have a feeling that you're connected with it. And you're not really connected with it. Your life is it. And it is from this sense of union, feeling of union, that you then speak or declare or decree that what you want, you already have. So you would say something like, I give thanks that this presence is everywhere and I am in the middle of it. It is in the middle of me. And I'm so grateful for the harmonizing prosperity that's flowing in my life. I'm so grateful for the healing of my body temple, the revelation of wholeness of my body temple. I'm so grateful that the meeting that I'm about to have turned out magnificently, and I'm stepping right into it. You would own that you already have it, rather than begging a reluctant deity to give you something. Your prayer is actually leading you to a realization that it's already done, because somewhere within the quantum field it is done, and you are that being that it's being done through. So you're accepting all of that. And I'm sure people have had answered prayer through begging, beseeching, whatever. But I think that somewhere there's an accidental alignment that takes place. An individual gets so tired that they let go, and then the answer shows up. It's not the begging, it's not the pleading. It's actually a connection that takes place where you have a feeling that's already done, and that's how I would begin to teach somebody that the prayer. I mean, we pray all the time here at Agape. I just got off the phone with one of my people that run my One from the Heart. It's called One from the Heart. It's a pastoral care, and people send in their prayer requests, and we visit people in the hospital and things of that particular nature. And there was a woman passing over. The husband had called because his wife was passing over. She was in a coma, and they were about to take all of the things out of her, the wires and everything that was keeping her alive. And he wanted a prayer at the community, at the service. So, I called her name, knew right, perfect healing was happening. And I don't define what a perfect healing is. Perfect healing could be she makes her transition. Perfect healing that she could be healed, physically. I don't define what that is. So anyway, later that afternoon, he calls and he says that she's out of the coma and she's going home in 2 or 3 days. I said, what happened? She said, you were praying and inviting the community to pray for her. And the doctor walked in and he said this idea came in his mind and he knew what was wrong. He did something to the woman and she came back to consciousness. And now she's leaving the hospital. And so I do feel that prayer does make a difference. It's a non-local event. It's the first wireless situation we have on the planet is prayer. And I've seen things like that happen a lot, and she's going home. So in my mind, as I was praying for her, I wasn't like praying for her to come out of her coma. I was just having a realization that where she is the presence and that the perfect outcome is happening now. And for her, that was her outcome. She woke up, she's going home to be with her husband and her family. But I think prayer is vital. You know what I call it? I call it meta talking. You go into meditation because the feeling that you get of that connection is the healing, you see. So I call prayer meta talking. You're just saying it out loud.
I feel like oftentimes prayer for me and people can be kind of like a little coercive or manipulative. It's like I'm like making a deal with this concept of God that I'll be a good boy or do the right thing. Like if you give me this, and
absolutely,
it's the same as like a very unhealthy relationship. And a healthy relationship comes into the courage of allowing, and the courage of trust, and the courage of surrender. And yes, then within that, there's an infinite well of energy that was always there. You were sitting atop of it. You were just trapped in fear.
Yes.
And so but that's the hero's journey, I believe. That's the most courageous thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You described it perfectly.
What blocks a person from abundance in their life?
Well, I think we're hypnotized from the time we come into this incarnation with a lack consciousness. It's not enough of anything. It's not enough money, not enough time, not enough love, whatever. And I think that particular thought form, as it impresses upon us, becomes our belief. You cannot outpray your belief, and until there's an inner realization that you live in a field of abundance. You live in a field of love. You live in a field of dynamic peace. It's all here. And the only thing that's preventing that is that your perception is suppressed. And so you're only going to get what you perceive to be the truth. And many people believe in lack. You turn on the news every day, there's lack, limitations, not enough oil, whatever. We live in a very immature economic system that's run on a non-renewable resource, so debt is built into it. So debt and lack and limitation is a part of the construct of this particular world, and it takes effort, inner effort, to actually break out of that and to realize you're surrounded by opportunities, you're surrounded by abundance, and then that feeling, leads to right speech, right action, right movement with the opportunities that come your way.
What is manifestation?
Well, that's become a really catchword over the last number of years. I'm going to manifest this. I'm going to manifest that. Manifestation is allowing that which is invisible to become visible. I talk about true manifestation, which is when you bring something into visibility, you're actually expanding your soul. You're actually becoming more of yourself. You're not just getting something. I mean, you're not just manifesting a new car. You're not just getting a parking space. You're not just getting a house. But something is happening within you where you're discovering more of you. That's true manifestation. And then it'll show up in your life. Yeah, you might be blessed with a new car or a nice home or really wonderful friendship or relationship, but it's not the thing. It's actually expansion of your awareness. That's true manifestation, because it is you can use the law of mind in action, that responds to your thoughts and bring things into manifestation while you stay the same. There's an old saying that, hell is God giving you everything you want. So people can use the law to get anything they want, but if they're not changing inside, that's not true manifestation. And there are people that are very skilled at that. But it's just like somebody can hit a fastball doesn't mean they're a good person. Somebody can dunk a basketball doesn't mean they have that skill. They doesn't mean they're spiritually enlightened. So somebody can learn the laws of how to bring something from the invisible into visible, but doesn't necessarily mean they're expanding their awareness. So true manifestation is an insight into who you are. And the bonus is the thing that you bring into visibility. So, when I teach that, I teach 4 stages of spiritual growth and unfoldment. The first stage is the victim stage, where we believe someone outside of us determines our destiny. Our good is somewhere else. We have victim stories. Stage 2 is the manifestation stage. You visualize, you become, develop a deep, coherent feeling that what you want, you already have. You affirm it, you declare it, you decree it, you see it, you bring it into manifestation. That's called making it happen with your mind. Stage 3 is, stage 1 is something's happening to us, victim. Stage 2, something is happening by us mentally. That's manifestation at that level. Stage 3, something is happening through us. We're more of a channel. We're a vehicle. We're open to what? To the good that's already here. It begins to flow through us. We surrender. Stage 2 is not surrender. Stage 2 is mental. Stage 3, you're opening yourself up. Something is happening through you. Stage 4 is you're it. It's happening as me. And so many people are still living at the stage 2 consciousness, which is not a sin. There's nothing wrong with that, but you see many people that have the world and are extremely unhappy. They have all the baubles of the world. They've learned how to manifest at that level. They can make a lot of money. They can do this and that. They have the greatest body in the world. But many of them are not happy. They're not joyful. They're not contributing. They're not loving, you see. Stage 3, you're beginning to open up and you realize there's a life force everywhere and it wants to express through you. And it carries the qualities of love and harmony and wholeness and beauty and prosperity, all of it. And so that's how I see the world of manifestation.
Yeah, one of the worst things that could happen to a person would be if their compensatory strategy never gets found out. So if you're a person that you compensated in the form of business or money or muscles or women or cars or whatever your thing is, beauty, and you're living within that persona aspect of yourself, you'll never truly feel satisfied. You'll always have a deep inner hungry ghost, vacuous sensation within. But if your compensatory strategy is working for you, you may not ever be able to experience the richness of yourself in this lifetime. But it's fine because you have lots of lifetimes to come, probably. There's no rush.
There's no rush.
No rush. It's fine.
Oh, you never get enough of that which doesn't satisfy. So absolutely. And I see it all the time. I counsel with people sometimes who are, have everything in the world and they just don't know why they're happy, and that they become on the verge of a spiritual awakening. And I try to midwife them through that. But you're right. They're just compensating. And
I think there's like a math to life, but life will wear out your persona. Like something I experience with, I box sometimes. I'm not great at boxing, but I like to box. And if I'm fresh, I can use more muscle and use more kind of like more persona, more ego in the way that I'm moving. Once I become exhausted, I can only express through technique. And I can only like allow the movement to move through me because I can't move atop of the movement anymore because I'm too tired to do that.
Right.
And I feel like life will keep on pushing against you. Like life is compassionate and it's graceful and it's forgiving. And you are as well, because you are life. And life will keep on, or you will keep doing to yourself. It doesn't matter. It's just language semantics. You will keep on wearing yourself down until eventually the persona is so exhausted that you can finally become authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Life is progressive. It's always moving to express more of itself. And if you're staying the same while life is progressing, you become stagnant, and then you actually create a crisis that then opens you up to possibility. It could be, they call it midlife crisis, whatever kind
That's
of
good.
crisis you want, But since life is always progressing, it's eventually, as you say, it's going to wear you down, and there'll be a crisis of some kind. It could be physical, it could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be financial, or whatever. And then you'll have to look at yourself again, and hopefully have an intention to expand.
Is it possible to have the wisdom to be able to thank the crisis, to be in gratitude for the crisis and say, I see you?
That is a part of a spiritual practice, when you can say, there's a blessing in this mess. There's a blessing in the mess that I'm going through right now, because the universe is progressive. There's something that's trying to be born here. There's something that I'm trying to midwife. That is a part of spiritual practice, when you're in a crisis, to say, okay, what's trying to be born here? What gift is trying to be birthed through me? That is a question that I teach people to ask when their back is against the wall. What gift is trying to be born here? And then when the attention shifts from just managing the crisis to what gift is trying to be born, there's an expansion of perception. And then there is the possibility of listening and being guided, because you're not just managing a crisis. Now you're more available to what's trying to be born here. What gift is trying to happen in my life? You're looking for something different. And now you're available to guidance and insight coming in a language and in a way that you can understand. Yeah.
It seems like as long as a person is forcing their life and clenching on to the things that they have, they're narrowing their window of what they can receive. But to release the tension on the things that you believe yourself to have, you don't actually have anything, everything's a loner, but the things that you believe yourself to have, I think can be very scary. How would you midwife someone into the transition of being truly willing to have the courage to let go and allow?
I have people focus more on the quality of the life they want to live rather than the thing that they think represents that quality. So, what does peace feel like? What does love feel like? What does joy feel like? What does abundance feel like? Don't tie it into a number in terms of money. Don't tie it into a person. But what quality of life do you want to live? And begin to, and every being on the planet, I believe, has had some experience with what peace feels like, or what love feels like, or what joy feels like. And you go into that, and you kind of simmer into that feeling of peace, of love, or harmony, or abundance, or joy. And so what are you surrendering to? You're surrendering to that. Okay, that's the presence. That's another name for the presence. And as you begin to loose your grip on the stuff you're holding on to, and you're releasing it to the presence in a familiar vibration that you have felt before. Now, if you say to me, I've never felt peace before, then I would say, imagine what that would feel like. Use your, upgrade your imagination, re-enchant your imagination. What does that, because the mind doesn't know the difference between your imagination and whether you've actually had the experience. And then you surrender to that vibration, and that begins to loosen your grip. And then demonstrations occur. Things begin to happen when you're in that vibration and frequency that allows you to surrender more.
Do you ever struggle? Do you experience internal struggles?
I do. Yes. Yeah. There are moments at this stage of my life, I'm aware of them, but I'm aware of them. It's like there's something going on and I can look at it, but I'm not identifying with, ooh, that's interesting. I look at it, even though I can feel it in my body. I will look at it, become aware of it. And my awareness of it begins to shift it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a psychological tool that's been studied and such. If you identify emotion, it reduces the power the emotion feels like it has over you. Once you identify, our language screws us. Like English language, like I am sad.
Yes, right.
Super bummer.
Right.
Like not chill.
No. You want to always be careful what you put after I am. You can say I'm experiencing sadness. Sadness is passing. I say sadness is passing through. I was aware of it today. Yeah. I got news today that a friend of mine passed yesterday. I didn't know, and I could feel my body. I could feel parts of my body constrict in my being. It's like, oh my God, because I was just going to call her. I was just going to text her. I knew she was going through something physical. And then I got the news and I could feel the sadness in my body. It was dense. And I said, wow. I happened to be at the gymnasium when I got the text. And so I kind of used that density to like work out with it. And then made some phone calls to check on some people. I want to see how her daughter's doing and things of that particular nature. But I never said to myself, I am sad, but sadness was present. It was present. It was in my awareness against the backdrop of how grateful I am for life. So it was passing through. Didn't deny it. It's more like an embracing of it, and it'll probably show up again later on in the day when I stop for a while, I'll think about her and say, oh my God, how's her daughter? I know she's fine, but she was, she knew a lot of people. She did a lot of good work. She used to, you ever read the book, ever heard the book, Calling in the One? It's Catherine Woodward Thomas. She wrote that book. So she's pretty prolific and a beautiful being and a good friend. So sadness was present today with me at the gymnasium.
What are some of the other words you know of in the English language that keep people in a state of handicap?
The word, I would like to do this, but people begin to have bad anatomy. They start to put their butt in their mouth. I would do this, but I just don't know how to do it. I would work out every day, but I just can't get up. I would eat better, nutritious food, but I just, the word but, we have to remove that. And it's leaky. It's like we leak the energy with that word. We have all of this infinite energy, and then it leaks out of us when we say things like that particular nature. I am no good. I would do this, but I was raised in this kind of a family and we don't know anything about that. So that word can be hindrance as well when we use it.
It's like your scapegoat for blocking you from your own infinite potential.
Yes.
It goes back to the perfectionism kind of thing.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I could be great, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I will always stay small because I'm terrified of being proven that I wasn't great.
Absolutely.
And so I'll just stay small because I can control my smallness.
Right. And I think people are also, I think it's an unconscious, within the noosphere, there's an unconscious thought that if I shine too brightly, I'll be crucified, or if I'm a woman, I'll be burned at the stake. It's like, it's in the mental atmosphere that if you shine too brightly, which it is true, mediocrity does attack excellence. And when you start to shine brightly, people pick at you. I was looking at a report, just as an example, of the top 100 athletes in the world, soccer, basketball, football, whatever. And the amount of criticism that they have, these are people who've won Super Bowls, they've won MVPs. No one is attacking the guy on the bench. People only find fault among those who are winning. And that's a part of the human dynamic of mediocrity attacking excellence. I think people have an unconscious fear of being attacked if they shine too brightly, if they really let their light shine, if they really go for it.
But the only way that you are attackable is if you are attached to the concept of you.
Absolutely. If
you become invincible. Like who you think you are is highly vulnerable. Who you are is not, in fact, vulnerable at all.
No, it's not. But if you're living under the hypnotic spell of what someone thinks about you is important, you're in hell all the time. That's hell.
Correct.
You're
a prisoner. You're a prisoner to the concept of other.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And there is, in fact, no other. It's just your relationship to yourself.
Absolutely.
And the judgment you have of yourself that you're projecting out to other.
Absolutely. And they just give it right back to you. This is what you think about yourself. this is what you think about yourself.
Something I've found interesting, I've done like ayahuasca and stuff like that. And one of the things that I noticed during when there's been very beautiful musicians in certain ceremonies and things, and something that happens, someone could play the most amazing song on a mandolin or a guitar or some like beautiful instrument, and you could just be like, you're like an angel, this is incredible. No one ever claps, no one ever snaps, no one ever even acknowledges the music. And I think there's something to that where it would be weird to acknowledge it, because it's like, you can only clap for yourself. and the creator of that music, if they're in the desire of your adulation or your applause, there's still a little bit of like a dualistic miss there where it's like, you're clapping for me.
Right.
But I think if you're truly at a place of like, quote unquote, like a true guru, not just whatever, or an enlightened one or an anointed one or something of the sort, I can only be grateful for your experience within yourself. You don't even need to thank me.
Right.
Because there is no me and there is no you.
Yeah.
And so if you experience love, like that is the thanks. It's amazing. Your love actually amplifies the love within myself. Like, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. That's what it would become.
It's a flow. It's a flow. Because a true artist, whether it's a spiritual teacher or a musician or a choreographer, that birth of that particular idiom is the ecstatic moment.
Yeah.
It's not whether somebody's clapping. I remember working with a woman years ago, and she had an unusually sultry voice, and she would say, and she would listen to the sopranos. Sopranos would get applause, and she was a little jealous of sopranos. And I would say, listen, do you see what happens when you sing? People cry.
That's the applause.
Yeah, that's it. You've touched what you're singing from, that soulful place you're singing from. When you touch somebody, they just cry and they release. You're not going to get the applause that a soprano hitting that high note. You're involved in changing a life through what's coming through you. And she got it eventually, and began to understand her own gift and not trying to sing really high like a soprano,
And the reason they're crying is because they're experiencing through you getting out of the way of yourself.
Absolutely.
And beneath the persona and beneath the ways that you stand in front of yourself is an infinite well of feeling and emotion and love and all the things that you've been compensating to pose as though you have in the forms of all your strategies.
Absolutely.
The money and the power and the words and the fancy watch and all the different things. Just behind that is like this infinite well of sweetness and innocence, and it's a child.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful.
And the reason that artists are the most highly paid people or athletes or whatever on the planet for the most part is because it wakes that aspect up within themselves. Like, wow, like I see that aspect, the reflection of that aspect that I'm desperately seeking within myself through the reflection of you in that moment while you're expressing.
Yes.
And it brings me alive. And money, suddenly I'm out of my mind. So therefore I don't have as strong of a relationship to like holding on to money. And I just want to give.
Absolutely. You come into your true nature, which is giving, which is making a contribution,
which is a gift.
Absolutely. Yeah. I sometimes will call entertainment the great pirate, because it will steal people's attention, and sometimes they will not allow it to bounce back to them to feel their own greatness, their own moment of inspiration, their own way by which they are to walk in the world and to shine like that singer, like that athlete, etc. So sometimes it steals the attention. But if a person goes to a concert, and sees the excellence and vibes with it, and then uses that to put that into their own life. They may be a writer. They may be a teacher at school. It doesn't matter. Every job has dignity to it, but become so inspired that you bring that feeling into your life rather than just project it onto that person. Then the cycle is complete. The circuit is complete. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I can quietly and safely experience you opening up to your own greatness from the safety of my couch.
Yep.
So I can kind of get a little imprint of it. But what, like, the deeper, more sustainable fuel is for me to do the work within myself, to feel the things I'm afraid to feel or face the things I'm afraid to face, to be able to live in that state and to be, because I am that state. Yeah. I think that's I feel like God is like playing peekaboo with itself in a way. I think I got that from like Alan Watts or something.
Yeah, that's
where it's like a game. Like, you are enlightened. You are it. You are that which you seek. Yeah. But you're in this cute game.
Yeah. But it is true. We enter into the door, the temple of enlightenment, by becoming aware that we're already enlightened. And what we're doing is you're just removing the obscurations from the mind. We're just removing. You can't add anything to yourself.
There's nothing to add.
Nothing to add. You're just removing perceptions, beliefs, trauma. You're just removing that. That's what the work is. And then you say, oh, here I am. You laugh.
In the most actionable way possible, how does a person remove the ways where they're inauthentic with themselves, or the fears they hold within themselves, or the baggage they hold within themselves?
But there's so many ways of doing it. I mean, if a person just honestly journals for real and writes down what's coming up emotionally, mentally in their life, and read it, and able to discern who's writing this, and they can see that this particular aspect of my personality is writing this, and it becomes interesting. This is not really me. Where did this person come from? When was this person born? And you can actually go all the way back to when that part of your personality was a reaction to something. It was a way you protected yourself. And then you can see that's not really you. Underneath is you. Before that thing happened, who were you? You were full of wonder and awe and joy, exploration, curiosity. You wanted to give your toys away, whatever. But you can, so journaling is good. You can do the same thing. My go-to is always meditation, to develop a level of introspection where you become aware, and then you become aware that you are awareness, and you can see all this stuff passing through. That it's not you. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. But who's watching? The onlooker. You're watching. Your awareness. And so that I think there's so many practices these days. And if a person goes deep enough in one, then you see how all these practices are all connected to bring you back to awareness. You are awareness. That's what you are. You see, you are the presence of God becoming aware and knowing itself as you at this precise space. And again, going back to your first question, that's a big thing to actually accept that, to actually step into the fact that you are pure awareness. There's nothing missing in you. Expanded awareness, you have choice rather than reaction. Life becomes different. Your life experience becomes different because life is life. Yeah.
What modern day religious dogma do you believe comes the closest to truth?
Well, modern day. Well, I think the metaphysical movement is close to it. I think it's. I think a lot of the Sufi practices that come out of Persia, come out of Iran before it was taken over. Go to Morocco. There's some nice mystical practices there. But in terms of it's a major religion, I don't really see it. They all seem very erudite and mental, and this is the way you do it without a judgment. Like Christianity's been hijacked by a very limited perspective, of Jesus. And if people knew who Jesus was, for real, they'd understand he didn't show up to start a religion. He was an enlightened being, Human beings develop something around him. So I think the metaphysical movement and now you have the quantum scientists who are discovering, as they went so far into nothing, they discovered the everything, the quantum field. So I think, you combine the quantum science with metaphysics, you kind of have the same different language describing the same thing. There's an infinite presence. It's everywhere. Infinite possibilities are there. Infinite potential is there. Metaphysicians are saying, there's the heart mind of God that's everywhere. All wisdom and knowledge is vibrating there, and we're at one with it. So religions, I think, are good for people to. Sometimes human beings need a structure, for a while until they can break free from structure and realize they need no intermediary. You need no intermediary between you and life, you and presence. And people, again, going back to your first question, oftentimes people are afraid. They want a mediator. They want someone to tell them what to do, But as you start having your own inner contact with this presence, it's you. Mm-hmm. Your higher self telling you what to do. It's different. It's a different relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up Christian, quite Christian. And then I kind of shifted being, not that so much. And now I feel like I very much align with the concept of Christ consciousness.
Yes.
Compassion, love, forgiveness, grace is kind of how I summate it. Somebody else can summate it any way you want. It doesn't really matter to me that much, or it doesn't matter to me, but I did the compassion, love, forgiveness, grace.
Yeah.
And reducing the self.
Yes.
Anything that leads to greater compassion, love, forgiveness, grace, and a reduction in self, I believe is in alignment with Christ consciousness.
Yes.
And you don't need to have a book. You don't need to have a name. You don't need to have a team. You don't need to have like a strategy on how to amplify the signal or whatever, because the light has no strategy on how to amplify itself. The light just is. And the way that you know you're near truth is because the light will just be. And the light just naturally illuminates darkness with no doing.
Absolutely.
And it feels to me like I went to church recently here in Miami, and when I went in, I went for Christmas, or not Christmas, whatever it was, Easter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. Like the vibe was incredible. And it's like, I was like, wow, like this is it.
Yeah.
And the people, dancing and listening to music, and there's people like crying and putting their hands up in the air and like, coming out of like reducing the self and coming into a collective. I was like,
yes.
This is it. And then the shift into kind of the dualistic nature of the concept of, pointing at the moon and then saying, like out there is the God, there is the this, there is the that, and applying all these, analytical stories of the mind into it and creating a story. I think for me, in my experience, which I'm not attached to anyone really giving any damn about, is I believe it can act as a really effective scaffolding to build the structure of the self. And if someone is lost, I believe the scaffolding can be very helpful to build the structure up. And I believe eventually, once the structure is fortified enough to stand on its own, it will just come into a dissolution and an evaporation of self. And within the self, there's no stuff. And there you come out, I believe, probably into, I don't know, whatever, Christ consciousness, I believe.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's a structure. And then after a while, you don't need it. It's like fundamentals, Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christ.
I don't need this. I don't need the story. I don't need your story. I don't need my story.
No.
There's just it. There's just is.
It is.
I accept. I love, forgiveness, grace for myself and for the concept of you and the concept of I. Accept, love, forgiveness, grace. Like, okay.
So sometimes when you see,
where do we go from here?
You see these beautiful people that are in the Christian church, they're not even listening to the dogma coming from the teacher. They're just doing what Jesus did, forgiving, loving, serving, and they're in church, but they've become the embodiment of the real Christ consciousness. They're just loving. They have a lot of compassion. Come over here, baby. Let me hug you. You're gonna be okay. They just have a different feel than the dogmatic stuff that's coming out. But to each their own until they don't need it anymore.
Is suffering necessary for awakening?
I think that's a big question. According to if you go into the Buddhist treatise, then suffering is a part of the path. But I like to think suffering is the story that you tell about your pain. I think pain is inevitable. Suffering, you have to choose it. Pain is birth pains. There's pains of awakening where you're releasing the personality, releasing parts of yourself that you were so identified with. It's a little painful, but ultimately it opens up to more bliss and ecstasy and joy. But human beings have a tendency to grow two ways: through pain and suffering, or insight. If they get sick and tired of being sick and tired, they begin to explore the possibilities. I don't think it's mandatory, but it's so so normal that it looks like it's mandatory. I mean, humanity does some interesting things to cause pain to each other and suffering to each other, and eventually there comes moments where it's like, okay, we have to transcend this. This is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was reflecting on the concept of suffering the other day, as one does, and my initial kind of knee-jerk response to suffering, that would be like something I would like read out of a book or something, or ask ChatGPT about, would be that suffering is just a byproduct of attachment. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, byproduct of attachment. If there's no attachment, then there's no suffering. There's just action and response. And a shark could eat a seal. The seal doesn't suffer; it just experiences stimulus. And the shark experiences stimulus, and it's just perfect with nature. And then I had another kind of feeling of it. Feels almost like suffering is healthy in a way for a person, because the suffering acts as like a shovel to dig the well. Like if you just experience pain, it doesn't dig the well so much.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone close to you passes that you had attachment to, or a relationship ends, dissolves that you had attachment to, it's the suffering that actually provides almost the energy to dig the well within the self. And what do you think about that? Like, because I think like there's a new age part of me. It's like, no, suffering, pain is inevitable. Suffering, choice. And then there's another part of me. It's like, maybe suffering is kind of like a tool in a way for the human.
It does make you go deeper. When you become aware of that elongated pain, it does make you go. It does make you go deeper. There is a redemptive aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's inevitable, but there is a redemptive aspect to suffering. And when you look at oppressed people around the world who have suffered through oppression or Holocaust or slavery, whatever the case may be, oftentimes out of that there's this birth of creativity, birth of compassion, birth of joy, a birth of community from the suffering. That whittles away everything that's not important, so that what's left is what is important, the real self. So in that sense, suffering's redemptive. And I remember I used to say some time ago that it's hard for me to trust people who haven't gone through some level of suffering, you know what I mean, and come out and changed. Because if you just, I'm just going to be a good person. I'm going to pay my taxes. I'm going to be a good person. And try to, that sense of perfectionism that you talked about. I'm never going to make a mistake, but oftentimes people who have suffered or maybe even made a big mistake in their life, and came out the other side of that, a changed person, they have a level of compassion, and also they have a level of trustworthiness because they've been through it. And they're not going to go against the nature that they discovered within themselves. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. What do you do if you hate someone? How do you navigate the relationship of I hate that person?
Somebody you know personally?
Not me. I
No,
don't
I'm
hate
not talking
much.
about you. I'm just saying,
Honestly.
but
Yeah.
somebody, they just hate that person. Well,
I hate her.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, but I mean it.
No, I understand.
Like, how do you navigate that?
Well, generally, if you hate a person that much, you're still in relationship with them. There's been a big betrayal or something along those lines. So you're still connected. You really love them and you really expected something from them and to be a different way. And because of that, you now hate them, but you're still connected with them. And what's happening to your own being based on that hate are toxic chemicals flowing through the body. You're creating a condition for disease and discomfort of your own body by projecting all of that hate among them. So the best thing to do is to rise to the level of beginning to practice some level of forgiveness so that toxicity is not fomenting in your being. And oftentimes people aren't ready to do that. They want to continue to have the story that this person did something or said something and they don't deserve my forgiveness. No, but you deserve your forgiveness. You deserve to be free. And your hating them is not going to affect them.
What do I do if I hate myself?
Well, there's a lot of people who live in self-hate. Whether they got that because of their first version of God was a parent that berated them, or the second person of God was a teacher that put them down, or a relationship. There's a lot of people that live in that dynamic of self-hate, and it has to be unraveled. And again, at some point, an individual will seek to come out of that conundrum. And when they seek, as you know, the old statement, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When they're ready to come out of that, then their way of coming out of that will show up. It might be a seminar. They hear something profound. It might be a book. I remember walking into the Bodhi tree many years ago and a book just fell off the shelf. It was exactly what I needed to read at that time in my life. But self-hate, I think, is more, I maybe not self-hate, self-loathing, but that integration of ourself, I think is kind of normalized. There's a lot of people that live at that level where they don't like themselves, and self-love and appreciation is actually one of the beginnings of the spiritual path, working on self-love, because without it, your self-loathing, your self-hate becomes the obstacles that you face in life. And so as you begin to grow in the absolute truth that you have emerged from beauty and love and intelligence, that's your real nature, until that becomes a living insight within you, then you project your self-hate onto the world and you keep meeting it. So self-love and appreciation and the exercises around self-love and appreciation begin to remove obstacles, because a lot of those obstacles is your self-hate coming back at you. And so it's necessary to grow with some degree of self-love and appreciation. I'll sometimes have people do an exercise in which they imagine someone like their grandmother, someone that really loved them. They imagine their grandmothers looking at them and loving them. What does that feel like? What does that feel like to be loved by your grandmother? And then to work through that so you're absolutely are able to receive that. Because they can't receive it from God yet, but maybe they can. But to receive that and then begin to build the circuitry to actually feel that one is worthy of that love. And then start to move into a deeper sense of self-love and appreciation, not based on merit, not based on a reward, not based on something good you did, but just who you are. It's lovable. Love this.
I feel, as you're saying that, I noticed, as I don't usually say things like I hate myself, but I noticed emotion actually like arise within me in that, which to me indicates that there's probably some reality or aspect within myself of like non-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And And I feel like something within the spiritual paradigm or new age, whatever, there can be obviously like a buzzword like, bypassing, spiritual bypassing. And we can apply a coat of positivity and avoid ever actually like feeling the depths of the feelings. And if we're not willing to actually feel the depths of the feelings and we keep on applying this like duct tape positivity atop of it, I wonder if sometimes the way through to the other side of those feelings is actually to go all the way into them. And so my question to you is, where in the new age, where is the modern new age movement the most full of shit from your perspective?
I think you probably just described it in terms of painting positive statements onto something that needs to be embraced and examined. And so the idea is you have to embrace it all. It's like a yoga practice. You bring your anger, your tiredness, you bring all that into the practice. You don't pretend that it's not there. And then the practice itself transmutes that energy. So in the same way, self-loathing, hating someone, whatever it is a person is feeling, I always teach you have to embrace that. You have to embrace it. You can't push it away. You can't drug it away. You can't sublimate it. It's going to pop out. But if you embrace it, something begins to happen. It begins to be transmuted. You also begin to see that as you're embracing it and the perceptions, like the ego, I often define the ego as unexamined perceptions. Ego's just saying things that aren't true. But it's unexamined. You begin to embrace it. Mentally, emotionally, it begins to lose its power. And you begin to not just identify with it as much as your identity, but you're not trying to make it go away. You embrace until there's a transmutation happening, you see. Trying to think of the teacher. Oh, Thich Nhat Hanh. I remember that was my first meditation retreat I ever went on. And he would talk about rocking it, taking it and embracing your fear, your anger, your sadness, rocking it. Don't until there's a transmutation. And those were days years ago when it would just be 30 of us with him. He wasn't famous yet. It was just 30 of us meditating. And I always remember his rocking analogy.
So I'm experiencing like therapy in a way right now as I'm opening myself up to those aspects within the self. And I can feel a softening of parts, and I can observe kind of the shell that I wear in the world, but just through the witnessing, the observation of this, I can actually feel an internal softening arising.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I can remember this, a number of years ago, I woke up and it was more than a funk. It was a deep sense of separation from the presence. And I talked about this recently. I literally crawled on my hands and knees to the place in my home where I would normally meditate. And this voice screamed out inside of me, I don't want to be this spiritual. That's what it said. I don't want to be this spiritual. And as I was in this darkness, I became very aware of what I would perceive, every mistake I'd ever made in my life, from small things to large things. And it was total hell, total darkness. And all of a sudden there was like a light, like somebody turned a switch, and I could see the luminosity that I was. And the analogy that came was, you have a brand new suit. Somebody drives down the street and splashes mud on it, You put it in the cleaners, it gets cleaned, except there's a small spot that didn't get clean. And it was showing me that I was placing my attention on the small spot on the suit, but not the fact that 99.99% of the suit was clean, And it was a very powerful awakening experience. Now, this is what happened. I mean, I was luminous, light, bright. And I said, wow, I made it. I'm awake. And then the very next week, the same thing happened again. And it made me aware that it's a continual process of cleansing, releasing some of the things we know about, some of the things we don't know about. We constantly embracing and releasing, keep clearing the perceptual windows until we can say, yes, sadness is passing. Sadness is here. Anger's here. It's not me, but it's here. It's in my body. I feel it. It's here. It's in my mind. I feel it. But it's not me. And so we become more and more identified with the expanded self, but we don't deny that which is passing through. To the best of our ability, we embrace it. Don't try to pray it away. We embrace it, hold it, and it starts to shapeshift. Yeah.
This is really amazing, man. Thank you for sharing this time.
Absolutely.
In the conversation.
Thank you for the invitation.
No. You still host the Agape
Yeah,
Church.
I'm still there every Sunday.
Yes,
I host the podcast, Take Back Your Mind.
Cool.
I speak pretty much every Sunday at Agape. It's amazing to me. It is. I mean, Agape is in its 40th year.
Wow.
And
you started it 40 years ago?
Yes, I did.
Holy crap. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I had no relationship to time, because, a flow of energy, and it's timeless. And I didn't realize that I had been doing it that long until I hit the 25th year. And somebody said, we should have a 25th anniversary party or something. And I said, really? And we did. But that was the first time that I actually thought about how long I've been doing this way. I mean, I do other things. I mean, I travel around the world. I speak seminars, meditation retreats. I mean, I get to express who I am in different ways. So 40, and we just celebrated our 39th anniversary, November of 2025. So we're in our 40th year. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. It's amazing because I'm very young and I can remember the young guy that started Agape. I can talk about him that way, Michael. I can remember the years before that. He was a spiritual therapist. He saw 5, 6, 7, 8 people every single day, 5 days a week. Counseling sessions. I was doing seminars before they were popular, and things of that particular nature. So he's had a good run.
How old is the Michael in the present form?
Oh, I don't deal with it. It's like a cultural portal that people try to put you in. Oh my God, you're over 50.
I don't deal with it.
I can go down that track. We can celebrate my birthday, but we're not going to celebrate an age. No.
That's good. I love that. All right. Well, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you shared and where you took it. We just free flowed and had a great conversation. It's beautiful.
Thank you, man. Hopefully we get to do this in person at some point.
Sure.
And thank you all for tuning in. That is it. That's all. I'll see you next week.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, you might also enjoy this episode over here, as well as this one over here. Thanks for subscribing. Appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.